Hello, fall starters. I'm going to talk you through some financial aid um, tips and tricks and timeline, and hopefully give you a good sense of what you need to do for financial aid for the fall. So, we're going to talk a little bit about scholarships. I'm going to walk you through kind of a step by step of what you need to do, some other factors to consider when, and some budgeting items, what you need to do every year, and then who to contact for what. So to get started, if you're awarded a scholarship, you know about it already. The scholarship, we gave you kind of a yearly amount and then also broke it down into a quarterly amount. You will be awarded that scholarship for 9 quarters. Typically 9 quarters because that's the number of quarters you need to graduate. The one exception to that is if you attend our summer study abroad program or do something in the summer where you're taking, just a few hours, we can kind of split one of your quarters of scholarship into 2 quarters. So we can award you some that summer quarter and then a 10th quarter. Otherwise, we will award you kind of your full amount of scholarship anytime you enroll. It is guaranteed for the first year, and then after that, you do need to maintain a cumulative 275 GPA. Um, Once it's lost, it is lost for good. There are some caveats to that with grace periods that can be provided by our dean with extenuating circumstances. If you come into law school and you have less than a $24,000 a year scholarship and you do really well after your first 3 quarters, if you have a 3.6 or higher, we will either bump you up to 24 a year or give you 8,000 a quarter. All right, so kind of your step by step. The first step, which hopefully a lot of y'all have done, is to fill out the FAFSA and complete any follow-up that the government asks. You'll obviously need to make sure you have an FSA ID. You'll choose Baylor as a recipient. Baylor Law School is not separate. The FAFSA's year is fall through summer. So if you filed the FAFSA for this fall, you won't need to do it again until the next fall. All law students are independent. So even if your parents claim you on their taxes, you're still independent. And then you want to make sure that you don't choose the federal work study option. Um, they are independent really because the amount of aid that you're eligible for has nothing to do with your need, your parents' need. Um, None of that. So really the purpose of the FAFSA for our purposes is for the government to verify your identity and kind of turn on the switch that allows you to get financial aid. So that's step one. Step two is after you've done that, now that you paid your second deposit, the financial aid office will send you an award, and they'll do this via email, directing you to BearWeb. They've started doing this for the fall starters. So if you've submitted your FAFSA and it's been a little bit of time, you should have your financial aid award. In that award, you will see your scholarship listed, and then you will see a federal direct unsubsidized loan if you've filled out the FAFSA. Um, the next step is kind of to determine your eligibility, and they'll actually set this up for you. You'll see in their budget or cost of attendance, it's $31,387 a quarter. You'll be packaged for fall through spring altogether. So it'll be about 3 times that much. It'll be in the low 90s. And you'll see kind of the items that they use to put together that budget. So they'll kind of estimate what you might need to spend for tuition, for fees, for books, for housing, for food, all of that. And it's just estimates. It's not necessarily what you're going to need to spend. That's how they build your budget and put together this thing called cost of attendance. Cost of attendance is also the maximum amount of aid that you can get. The cost of attendance is based on the average law student. The average law student takes 14 hours a quarter. Y'all will be taking 14 hours this fall, but then you'll take 15 in the winter and uh 12 in the spring. So your cost of attendance will stay the same. It's the same anytime that you're taking at least 10 hours. So once again, it's just an estimate for a full-time law student, but it tells you how much aid that you're allowed to get. So that 92-ish thousand dollar number. Um, just so you know, the university is on a 2 semester, 1 summer system. So what that means for you as a law student is the financial aid will package you kind of fall through spring, which is their their normal 2 semesters, although for you it will show up as 3 quarters, fall, winter, and spring. And then if you ever took summer classes, that would be packaged as a standalone quarter. All right, so you have your cost of attendance, you have your scholarship listed, you have basically net cost, and then under that you'll have your unsubsidized loan. So if you take net cost and subtract the unsubsidized loan, the remainder is your other eligibility. It'll be listed as alternative loan eligibility, and we'll go into that a little bit more. So now you kind of know how much aid that you can get. It's that cost of attendance number. And then kind of choose your types, how you want to fill that cost of attendance. Well, scholarships, you already know about that. Federal direct unsubsidized loans, which you get just by filing your FAFSA. You don't have a choice on the top amount that you can get there. The government mandates that. They said you can get $20,500 per year. A year in their mind is fall through summer. There is a lifetime limit of direct unsubsidized or subsidized loans of 138,500. So if you took out a lot in undergrad, that's something to keep an eye on. If you fill out the FAFSA, you will see that it's typically spread out over fall through spring. I'm sorry, ignore the next part of that sentence. So you will not receive all you can for fall. It'll be spread out equally over fall, winter, and spring. So about 68.33 per quarter. The only other cap on it is cost of attendance minus other aid. So your all of your aid together cannot exceed cost of attendance. On the federal direct unsubsidized loans, interest does accrue during school. So as soon as the aid disperses, it disperses per quarter. As soon as it disperses, it begins to accrue interest. These are a fixed interest rate loan. For the 24-25 year, it will be a fixed interest rate of 8.08%. It does have a 1.057 origination fee. What that means is, say that you took out a $100 loan and there was a 1% origination fee. You would still owe $100 because that's the loan that you took out, but you would only ever see $99 of it. The lender takes out a percentage to cover their costs. However, if your cost of attendance will be raised to include origination fees so that you're able to actually receive that full cost of attendance amount. These loans have 6-month grace period after you drop below half time, below 5 hours. For most of y'all, that will be when you graduate. Summers don't count. And because they're federal, they're eligible for consolidation, different repayment plans. That's one option. So you have your cost of attendance minus scholarships, minus the 20,500 in federal direct unsubsidized loans. The next option is a Grad Plus loan. These are another federal loan. You do have to go and apply for it. You do that at studentaid.gov. There's no aggregate or annual cap on these other than cost of attendance minus other aid. Like the unsubsidized loans, interest accrues during school. These always have a 1% higher interest rate than the unsubsidized loans. So it's a 9.08% this next year. Once again, though, your cost of attendance will be raised to include origination fees. These have a 6-month postgraduate deferment after you drop below half time. Basically operates similar to a grace period. I can talk to you about the nuances of that, but you don't have to start paying back until 6 months after graduation. They're federal, so they're eligible for consolidation and different repayment plans. There is a requirement for these. It's not automatic like the FAFSA, or sorry, like the federal direct unsubsidized loans. And one thing I will say on the federal direct unsubsidized loans is you do have to be a citizen or a permanent resident for any federal loan. For Graduate Plus loans, you can't have adverse credit. You don't have to have good credit, but you can't have adverse credit, meaning essentially you can't be bankrupt or in default on other loans. If those are issues for you, you can get a cosigner. You can also fix your adverse credit. Feel free to talk to me about those issues if that applies to you. So to recap, cost of attendance minus scholarship minus 20,500 federal direct unsubsidized loans. Anything else that you would want, you have a Grad Plus as one option. The other option is state and private alternative loans. You can search the Baylor website to get a list of lenders that we may recommend. These really may have fixed interest rates. They may have variable interest rates. They have a variety of origination fees, often based on credit, a variety of credit requirements even. And because they're private or state, they're not going to be eligible for consolidation or repayment plans. Federal consolidation, I should say. If you are a veteran or are planning to use a parent or spouse's VA benefits, you'll need to work with the VA benefits office. That information is in the financial aid step by step, but if you need help connecting, let me know. I recommend that you do that in plenty of time each quarter. One thing to keep in mind is the VA does not send aid until after the term begins. They'll place kind of a placeholder on your account. They don't actually send aid until after the term begins. Excuse me. And then federal work study, I mentioned this at the beginning. Financial aid will not award this to you, even if you select it. The only exception to this is if you talk to Associate Dean Corden currently, and you can potentially get a job in the library for work study. But particularly at the beginning, they really dissuade you from working and won't award you work study outright. So after you apply for loans, do what you need to do. You'll have to sign master promissory notes and complete entrance counseling. What exactly you need to do is in your financial aid step by step. It'll also be on Bear Web telling you what you need to do. Really takes very little time. That just is kind of showing that you understand the loans that you are taking out. And then kind of this last big step is settling your account. So as soon as possible, and no sooner really than 90 days before the start of any term, you can apply for Texas Cal, Graduate Plus, private loans, all of those loans. And then a bill is always generated at the beginning of the month after you register. So y'all are registering in July, so a bill will be generated on August 1st. Loans typically will appear on your bill about 2 weeks before the start date. Sometimes it's a little bit earlier, particularly for fall starters. And then 10 days before the start date of each term, kind of your loans will disperse. So all of your loans and scholarships will disperse. They'll go to cover your bill. Then the excess, if you've set up direct deposit, will be sent to your bank. It takes a few days for the bank to process it typically. So you typically can count on that excess refund being in your bank account 5 days for the start date. It's the same process every quarter. Aid disperses by quarter. The balance is always due at the end of the month after you register. So for the fall, it won't be a problem because the fall, the balance will be due at the end of August. There are some times where the balance might be due before aid disperses. That's okay. As long as you've done what you need to do and it's showing as kind of anticipated aid, you will count as being settled. If you are not settled in time, you will be charged a late fee after the due date. It's a $25 a month late fee, but don't panic. You won't be dropped from classes. Really, the only other than $25 a month, the only consequence is you won't be able to register for the next set of classes until you have settled that bill. So there should be plenty of time to work out issues, to get things done. Okay, so a few other factors to consider. You'll want to make sure that you're living like a law student now so that you can live like a lawyer later. So some things to keep in mind is books. Books are going to be expensive. I think particularly in your first year. So you'll want to kind of budget some money for that. It's included in cost of attendance. So that'll give you a good sense of what you might be spending on books per quarter. Something else that's not necessarily going to be in your immediate cost of attendance is bar expenses and the declaration. So when you start at Baylor Law School, you'll meet with the Board of Law Examiners for the state of Texas. And if you're planning to be an attorney in the state of Texas, they'll want you to start this process called the Declaration of Intent to Study Law. You'll go through this as a first-year law student. Basically starts them reviewing your background. It is $190 if you do it timely, so kind of in your first quarter of law school. If you are delayed, it's an additional $150. So they typically recommend if you think you're going to take the bar exam in Texas, you'll want to go through this process. And then, regardless of where you want to take the bar, in your third year of law school, you'll have to actually register to take the bar exam. For the state of Texas, that is a $350 expense in your third year. If you meet kind of the priority deadline, if you're past that, it's an additional $150. And then you'll also take a commercial bar prep class. Barbary and Themis are the two most common. And those can be several $1,000s. We will talk to you about ways to kind of minimize that cost, but it is something to keep in mind as you're budgeting. Another item you'll need is a laptop. You can get a cost of attendance adjustment to be able to get aid for this, but just note that one of y'all, at least one of y'all's laptops is going to die at some point in law school. So you want to be planning for that so you're not caught off guard. Then the other thing is several suits, interview, travel expenses, and at orientation, we'll talk you through some good places to get suits that aren't too expensive. But it is something you want to think through, particularly in your second and third year as you're going through the interview and practice court processes. So a few other ways to get money, kind of the biggest way is either summer or other off-quarter clerkships. A lot of times, kind of depending on what you do, these can pay pretty well. So you can make some good solid money. And I encourage you to continue to live like a law student and kind of squirrel away some of that money to help defray costs in your second and third year. We publish a periodic list of writing competitions and private scholarships that we know about. I encourage you to pay attention to these. A lot of times it's a good way to make some extra money. I don't have it on here, but going to Access Lex Scholarship Data Bank is another great place to look for private scholarships and writing competitions. I already talked about kind of upper level after first year scholarships. There's also a few scholarships or awards that are offered at Law Day, which is something that Student Affairs does in the spring. These are for people who are really involved in a particular activity or do really well in a particular class. Then I also encourage you to check with your local bar association, check with your hometown bar association, see if they have small scholarships. A lot of times they do as well. So what you'll need to do every year, you'll have to go through the steps I mentioned, kind of every fall through spring and every summer. So y'all really, if you go through all these application processes, shouldn't have to do anything again until next summer. But you'll have to definitely do it again for next fall. And if you're not taking classes next summer, you won't have to do it next summer. When y'all go through orientation, you'll have to sign up for Access Lex Max, which is a free kind of personal finance course for law students. I encourage you to look at Access Lex Max sessions. There's some great scholarships attached to that as well. That entity, Access Lex, offers a program called Access Connects, which is free individualized loan counseling for law students and law grads. So I encourage you to take advantage of that. I mentioned some future expenses, particularly related to the bar that you'll want to save for. Also adjust your loans based on your experience. If you take out the full cost of attendance this first quarter and then decide, hey, I don't actually need that much, you can return some and you can adjust in future quarters. Then the last question or last bullet point I always get questions about is about deferring other loans from undergrad or another grad program. The vast majority of lenders are part of something called a clearinghouse. Basically, we send a list of everybody enrolled. They check that list. If they see you're enrolled, they automatically grant you an in-school deferment. If you get a bill from your servicer, or you know that your servicer is not a part of that, you could call and ask them for an in-school deferment form. You can bring that to me or to Jerry Cunningham or to Mike Bracelet in my office, and we can get that filled out for you so that you can get in-school deferment on other student loans. Which brings me to my last point. If you have kind of general clarifying questions, first stop, always come see me or Mike in the admission suite on the first floor. We can help you with that. Sometimes though, if you have specific account questions, I may refer you to the financial aid office, which is the ones that actually does the packaging. They're dealing with, the 20,000 Baylor students, so it might be easier to come to me first. They are in the sub, the Bill Daniel Student Center on the third floor. That's one-stop student financial services. Included their phone numbers there. And have a contact form for them. If you ever have a less than positive experience with them, please let me know, so I can sometimes kind of go behind the scenes and help advocate for you. And that is pretty much it. Hopefully that answered a lot of y'all's questions about financial aid.